It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. Young people put at the heart of the election campaign, with the Conservatives promising the return of compulsory national service. And from Labour, a promise to extend voting rights to 16 and 17-year-olds. Also tonight, tributes to an RAF pilot killed when his Spitfire crashed in Lincolnshire. New figures reveal more than 10,000 migrants have arrived in the UK in small boats since the start of the year. Tension around Taiwan as the United States says it's deeply concerned over Chinese military drills. Fans' disappointment as rap superstar Nicki Minaj cancels tonight's gig in Manchester after she's arrested on drugs charges. Plus, Manchester United beat rivals Manchester City to win the FA Cup. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. Young people have been put at the heart of the third day of general election campaigning. The Conservatives have unveiled plans to introduce a year's compulsory national service for 18-year-olds, claiming it will foster a renewed sense of pride in the country. Meanwhile, Labour say they want to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote, arguing that people old enough to work and pay taxes should be given more of a say. Our political correspondent Rob Powell reports.
Saturday morning at the local Wetherspoons, Rishi Sunak in his Yorkshire constituency meeting veterans.
Morning.
The Tory campaign now also adopting a wartime flavour, with plans for a new form of national service where 18-year-olds would be forced to volunteer or take a full-time military placement. But the topic of conversation here, the drenching the Prime Minister got on the steps of Downing Street, with one person asking if he caught pneumonia.
It was wet. Actually, the amount of people that gave me an umbrella over the last couple of days. No pneumonia yet, so that's good. Right.
After accusations of a less than busy campaign schedule today, Rishi Sunak later popped up in South London with flight logs showing a Tory donor's helicopter travelling from ground next to his Yorkshire home to the capital. Sources insist these were pre-planned visits. Meanwhile, at a football ground in the Midlands, the Labour leader was pointing to the economy. Amid warning signs about the dire state of public finances, the party denied they were planning any major tax rises.
The Labour Party has said the number one mission is to focus on the economy, to grow the economy, and the first step towards that is to stabilise the economy.
Held by Labour under Blair, it's no surprise Sir Keir Starmer is targeting Stafford. It's seats like this that could put him into power.
I don't trust any of them. I think they're all out for themselves.
So yeah, I'd trust anybody apart from the Tories. And I believe Labour have got a plan as well in place. Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer seem to have a plan in place.
I think politicians are out of touch with what real life is.
Conservatives hoping voters are swayed by their recent tax cuts.
Now is the time, as we've proved in the last two fiscal events, the budget and the autumn statement, cutting taxes on working people, taking a third off national insurance is about £900 to your average worker. That may not seem a lot to some people, but you know what? To most of my constituents, that's real money.
With the campaign cycle barely 3 days old, some themes have already emerged.
Optics, or what the voter can see, really matters in an election campaign, and in that respect it's been an unfortunate start for Rishi Sunak. But it'll be the economy that forms the substance of this race, and as both sides trade well-worn blows, economists warn that neither party is really being honest about the scale of the challenge ahead when it comes to tax and spend.
The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, also out shopping for votes. But Labour's plan for workers has been criticised by the country's largest trade union. The party maintains their now renamed package of reforms will protect employees. But Unite says it's in danger of becoming a bad boss's charter.
There's a kind of very small c conservative-minded wing of Keir Starmer's sort of shadow cabinet at the moment. People like Rachel Reeves and Pat McFadden, who are very concerned that business approves of this, that they don't lose any consent from businesses.
There'll be many more handshakes for both party leaders before polling day is upon us, but photo ops only take you so far as voters focus in on who is fit for power.
And Rob joins us now from Westminster. Rob, tell us a bit more about the Conservatives' plan to introduce a year's compulsory national service for 18-year-olds. Do we have any more detail?
Yeah, Gillian, by my reckoning, this is the first significant new policy announcement by either of the main parties. And I think after a bumpy few days, it's an attempt by Rishi Sunak to change the conversation with quite a bold and a very eye-catching announcement. What it involves is essentially 18-year-olds being given the choice to either have one weekend a month over a year working in organisations like the NHS or the police or with charities, or if they like, they can try and pass a test to get into a selective year-long placement with either the armed forces or in cyber defence. Now, a royal commission, which is a kind of inquiry, would be set up to look at the details of all of this. And because this is mandatory, any 18-year-olds that refuse to do it could face non-criminal sanctions. That inquiry will hammer that out and look at things like exemptions as well. Now, Rishi Sunak has written in the Mail on Sunday about this this evening, and he said this isn't conscription, but in his view, this is about giving young people opportunities, equipping them with skills, but he also believes it's about instilling a sense of pride of service in younger people, which he believes will bind society together and make society stronger. I think this is clearly designed as well to appeal to traditional core Tory voters, especially older voters. It's already causing quite a bit of a splash and getting a lot of attention in many of the Sunday newspapers due out tomorrow as well. Labour have lashed out at it already. They've called it desperate, and they say it's only being announced because of the dire state of the armed forces. Sir Keir Starmer has taken a different approach in terms of policy towards young people today, reconfirming possible plans and saying that if Labour make it into government, that they could extend the voting age down to include 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. So, as I was saying in my report, a lot of focus on the visuals, the optics of this campaign, but I think it's the details, the substance, and what both parties have to offer, which will prove decisive come polling day.
OK, Rob, thank you. Both the Conservative and Labour leaders have paid tribute to an RAF pilot who died after a Spitfire crashed in Lincolnshire. It's understood that the plane had been taking part in a Battle of Britain memorial event at RAF Coningsby near Lincoln. The Ministry of Defence says the pilot's family have been informed. Rishi Sunak said awful news to see the life of a serving RAF pilot cut short in this tragic event. My thoughts are with their family and loved ones. And Sir Keir Starmer said, deeply saddened by news from Lincolnshire. Thank you to the emergency services for their response. My thoughts are with the pilot's family at this awful time. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have also released a statement. They say incredibly sad to hear of the news this afternoon from RAF Coningsby. Our thoughts this evening are with the pilot's loved ones, the Battle of Britain memorial flight and the wider RAF family. Official figures show that more than 10,000 migrants have now arrived in the UK by small boats this year. The Home Office says 288 people were detected crossing the Channel yesterday. The total numbers are a new record for this stage of the year. Sky's Adele Robinson has more.
Proof deterrents aren't working as the number of Channel crossings tip over 10,000. A new record for this stage in the year as nearly 300 migrants risked their lives on Friday.
You're in the middle of the sea, you look left and right, you don't see any hard thing, right? And almost the water just, getting in the boat.
Kolbasia knows the desperation. He fled in the same way from torture years ago. He helps other victims and says UK politics won't stop the boats.
We know the crossing is dangerous, but we do it anyway because we know that that's the only option that we have. There's nothing that can stop us in order to get somewhere where we feel that we need to get to be safe.
Rishi Sunak's reputation and possibly the election depends on getting immigration under control. But Rwanda deportation flights have been paused. This accommodation there still empty.
We're seeing people who've fled brutal regimes, oppressive wars, who are in limbo. They're not being processed. they're not going to be removed. And all of that means that their accommodation costs will carry on rising. And so whoever wins the next election, this will be the immediate priority. The system is heading for meltdown.
Migration also tricky for Labour. The voters it needs to win back want tougher controls, but Keir Starmer won't keep the Rwanda scheme. Instead, he wants to speed up asylum claims.
But nothing has worked so far, and they'll all have to convince people that theirs is the plan that finally makes a difference. There's also a lot of scepticism that Labour will do any better. But immigration is one of the top issues voters care about, so they'll have to.
The Home Office said we continue to work closely with our French partners to prevent crossings and save lives. The Refugee Council estimate over 100,000 are eligible for deportation to Rwanda. But as more arrive, the backlog grows. And what to do with them contested over the next 6 weeks. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
A concert tonight in Manchester by the US rap superstar Nicki Minaj has been cancelled after she was arrested in Amsterdam over drugs allegations. It's the latest setback for the troubled Co-op Live Arena, which opened earlier this month. Our correspondent Emma Birchley is with me now. It's been following this story throughout the evening, and you brought us the news that she was released. The hope was she would make the concert, but that is not to be.
Yes, so much hope. It was just before 9 o'clock, news that she'd been released, that she was to face an undisclosed fine. And this, a 41-year-old American woman who'd been arrested for possession of soft drugs. So, hope in the arena in Manchester, and then this announcement.
Live on Saturday, 25th May, has been postponed. Tickets will remain valid for the rescheduled performance, which will be announced ASAP.
So there will still be a concert, the tickets are still valid. That was filmed by a superfan, Connor Wynne, who got in the queue at 8 this morning. He was right at the front. He was there in the prime spot. And we've heard from him since, actually, enormous disappointments. But he's just pleased she's OK. He's actually going to see her again later in the week. So he's all right. And for everyone else, you know, hopefully they'll hear about a new date pretty soon. Just to go back, this all started unfolding in the middle of the afternoon with a series of tweets and Instagram posts by Nicki Minaj. In this one, she's given the news that her bags need to be checked again.
We have to offload all the luggage and to search everything of your luggage. I'm so sorry to say that.
But isn't that what you planned on doing from the get-go? Why didn't you guys search it before it went on the plane?
They did just a random quick check, but now they want to open it. And
well, hot off the press, we actually now have got a comment from Connor. This is what he sent us as he was leaving the venue.
So the concert has been postponed, but like just as long as Nicki is okay, that's all that matters really. She got arrested in Amsterdam on her own as well, bear in mind. Like that must be so scary. And obviously she's done everything that she could in her power to try and get here on time. But obviously it just wasn't possible, so it could be a postponed date. She's also back in Manchester next Thursday.
And just a quick reminder, this arena is the Co-op Live in Manchester. It was only due to open on April the 23rd. It was delayed. The building work hadn't been finished. It's had all sorts of high-profile delays with Peter Kay, Take That, Olivia Rodrigo, all having to either cancel or move their gigs. So not an ideal start, and this just adds to that long list.
Indeed. Emma, thank you very much for that update. The United States has urged China to act with restraint following large-scale military drills around Taiwan. Beijing says the two-day exercise was punishment for those who want Taiwan to be independent from China. Taiwan insists it won't be cowed by Chinese pressure. Taiwan is roughly 100 miles from the coast of southeast China and has been independent since 1949. But Beijing believes Taiwan should be unified with the mainland by force if necessary. China has carried out military exercises around Taiwan for years, notably in 2022, in response to US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's controversial visit to the island. China's military described the drills this week as a simulation of how to seize power on the island. Our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch sent this report from Taiwan's capital, Taipei.
In Taiwan, a delicate peace looks a little more fragile. The self-governed island has a new leader, one China sees as a reckless separatist. For 2 days, Beijing tried to show the world how it could and would wage and win a war here. This is Keelung, a naval base. The closest Beijing's aircraft got to Taiwan's coast was about 45 miles from here. Ki Ming-woo has seen decades of tension. To him, it feels like a farce.
Do you think conflict with China is a real possibility?
China is huge. Taiwan is just such a tiny place. One lake in China is 10 times bigger than Taiwan. Do you think this land is of any benefit to them?
But to Beijing, it is critical. Reunification inevitable. The latest drills, punishment for Taiwan talking about 2 separate countries. It is about more, though, than just vitriolic bluster.
There is definitely a sense here that if Beijing was to make a military move, it would be catastrophic. But there is also a kind of fatigue that seems to have set in, particularly among young people, a sort of collective roll of the eye every time the rhetorical cannons are fired.
Back in the harbour, everyone's looking elsewhere, trying to tune out of chat about China.
After so many years of military exercises, people have just become used to it, and they don't think China will actually attack.
I'm more worried about China influencing and infiltrating Taiwanese politics than I am about war.
But the US says Beijing may be on track to be ready to attack Taiwan by 2027.
Do you think that Beijing is preparing for war?
Certainly, yes. China is preparing for war. Based on the number of military ships and the hiring of new recruits, it's all for self-defense and Taiwan.
Conflict looks very costly and risky for Beijing right now, though. It may well opt to just squeeze this island rather than seize it. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Taipei, Taiwan.
A cross-party group of MPs is calling on the next government to consider a total ban on under-16s owning smartphones. The Commons Education Committee is also recommending a ban on phones in schools to protect children from online harm. Sky's Rachel Venables has been speaking to a mother who believes social media played a role in her son's death.
He was a kind, adventurous child who loved riding his bike and wanted to be a chef. But at just 14 years old, Jules Sweeney took his own life.
I don't understand why he went from a happy, normal child to taking his life.
Jules' mum, Ellen, fears his death was linked to social media and has started a petition campaigning for parents like her to get access to their children's accounts.
We're not doing enough to protect our children. You know, this shouldn't be happening. Children shouldn't be taking their lives because of social media.
Now a report from MPs says the next government should consider a total ban on under-16s having smartphones and a statutory ban on phones in schools.
I think a ban for under-16s might help with screen use, but I don't think it is just about phone use, and I think it's a bigger issue.
The Education Committee found that the risks of having a smartphone outweighed the benefits and that for children, this screen time is harming their mental and physical health. They've also recommended that the next government consider upping the age limit of opening a social media account from 13 to 16.
They found there had been a 52% increase in children's screen time between 2020 and 2022, while nearly 25% of children and young people show signs of being addicted to their smartphones.
We were quite shocked by the extent of
the addictive behaviour that we're seeing amongst teenagers, the mental health problems that that's leading to, but also at the hard end, some of the child abuse, grooming, children being dragged into crime.
But there's disagreement about the need for an outright ban.
It would impact the way they're able to learn and benefit from the online world, and particularly for the most vulnerable children, who we know get a lot of important support and connection from being able to go online.
Parents like Ellen don't mind exactly how children are made safer online. They just want whomever's in government after the election to make it a priority.
I know you can do this, Mum. Be strong and stay brave. I love you.
Rachel Venables, Sky News.
And if you've been affected by anything in Rachel's report there, you can contact the Samaritans on 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org. At least 27 people have been killed in a fire at an amusement park in Western India. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he's extremely distressed by what's happened in the city of Rajkot in Gujarat state. At least 2 people have been killed and 8 injured following Russian strikes on the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. Pictures from Ukrainian government sources show emergency services racing to contain the fire triggered by the blasts. Moscow has denied the deliberate targeting of civilians in the strikes. A 17-year-old boy from Lancashire has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a woman was stabbed to death on a beach in Bournemouth. A second woman is in a serious condition after the attack at Durley Chine last night. Experts are warning that increasing crowds queuing for the summit on Mount Everest are putting climbers at growing risk. It comes after a British man went missing while climbing the mountain earlier this week. Dan Patterson and his Nepali guide fell when an overhanging mass of snow collapsed. Fraser Maud reports.
Dozens of climbers stuck in a queue at the top of the world as they try to complete and survive the ultimate challenge, climbing Mount Everest. Earlier this week, the collapse of an ice overhang known as a cornice caused several climbers to fall. 4 were clipped on and able to self-rescue, but Yorkshireman Dan Patterson and his Nepali guide Pastenji Sherpa are still missing. The 40-year-old gym owner from Wakefield reached the summit on Tuesday. Now his friends and family are trying to raise £150,000 to fund a rescue attempt. On a crowdfunding page, Dan's partner Bex Woodhead says Dan is not just an adventurer, he's a beloved son, brother, partner and friend. He's known for his adventurous spirit, his kindness and his unwavering dedication to helping others. Now, she says, it's our turn to help him. In 2010, Benita Norris became the youngest British female to complete the climb, aged just 22.
I take my hat off to anyone who goes to Everest today because everyone's seen those queues. I think the biggest risk these days on Everest is probably the queue in some ways. It's just running out of oxygen, getting too cold, getting stuck if you're injured or you're in danger and you just can't move fast enough. So it seems like a very different mountain to the one that I climbed.
Since 1922, over 300 people have died on Everest. More than 90 died on their return from the summit, and last year saw a record number of deaths, with 18 people losing their lives. Most of the bodies are still on the mountain. It's thought the latest queue at 8,800 metres on the Hillary Steps made it difficult for any potential rescue. Mountain guide Alan Hinks has conquered many of the world's highest peaks, including Everest. He knows firsthand the unique dangers on the mountain.
There's no chance of getting rescued by a helicopter, by the way, once you're above 6,500 metres, because it's too high for helicopters. And there's no chance of a rescue team, it's too high for them. So there has to be self-rescues done by the people who are there. But, most people are, a guide has his, he has to look after his client, his duty of care.
This year alone, over 450 people have attempted to conquer Everest. Around 270 have been successful. But there remain calls for Tibet and Nepal to reduce the number of the $11,000 climbing permits they issue for safety and environmental reasons. Fraser Maud, Sky News.
Time now to catch up with all of the sports news with Vishali.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
You're going to run, jump on the board and try and stick it in your glue like this.
How have you found retirement in general?
Retirement's been a real tough road. I think it is for everybody. I've had lots and lots of conversations with high-level athletes, and I think this is a period of discovering who Niall is, just existing. I've got a great life. I've got incredible people around me, and every day is a discovery just on my own self-awareness. For the most part, just putting my mental health at the forefront of my priority. I seem to be doing a lot better, certainly in the last sort of 6 months.
There's something switched. Why do you think you're doing better in the last 6 months?
I was just brave enough and disciplined enough to go, you know, I don't actually like the person that I am when my behaviour's acting up, or I'm in my own little pity party and upset about I still want to be doing sport. You know, I just thought just took control of that and did the things I know that were good for my mental well-being. To be, and particularly a male athlete, we're deemed as alpha and strong and having the answers, and we're warriors. Feeling depressed, anxious, having problems with addiction, they were really, really scary times in my life, and I certainly didn't feel the latter of all those feelings. And I think it's quite powerful for a male athlete to come out and talk about this. And in talking, I felt in the deepest, darkest moments, all I needed was someone to speak my language. We're gonna go one at a time. When I say go, and then you walk to the back of the queue. Do we understand? I was certainly one of those people that didn't necessarily believe in what mental health was and depression. You know, I was a positive, outgoing guy and a successful guy, and I thought you could self-talk your way into a positive life. You know, when depression slapped me in the face, obviously that isn't the case, and it is a scary, lonely period.
You obviously had a really bad neck injury. What effect can that have on an athlete?
That takes its toll mentally for sure, and certainly my neck injury, it did lead to end my career. But I think it changed who I was as a physical athlete. You know, I realised how much I underpinned my definition of myself on my physical capabilities. You know, if things were great in the gym and I was winning gold medals, brilliant. If I was injured or things weren't going so great, then I would just crash down to the ground.
You've spoken quite openly about drinking and gambling as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you look back now on your relationship with them, is it almost like looking at a different person?
I've learned the hard way that mental health and addiction are very, very closely aligned. They're best pals, and unfortunately, we start to use these things like alcohol and gambling to escape our own feelings. I look back on that, and having come through everything, just now my power is self-awareness.
To anyone out there who's struggling, who doesn't know what they're going through, who's feeling a bit different, what would you say to them?
You're going to get through this. It's going to be all right. You can do it. You know what I mean? I've done it. Lots of other people have done it. And talking is the first place to start, I think. You know, one day at a time, and you got this.
Obviously, we're in the Olympic year.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people who are in. I know yours happened in the Commonwealth, but there's going to be a lot of people who are going to become famous overnight.
Yeah.
Their lives are going to change. The following's going to go up. They're going to get paid more.
Yeah.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by journalist and author Christina Patterson and the former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Telegraph, highlighting the Prime Minister's promise to bring back national service for 18-year-olds. We'll be right back with that story and many others. Do stay with us.